everyone. So we're speaking on the 7th of December. And last night, Secretary General Antonio Guterres essentially pressed the panic button and said what's happening in Gaza is a threat to international peace. The ICC prosecutor has said Israel must respect international law. And we've got, the International Committee of the Red Cross president weighing in, which is kind of unusual. What's it going to take to protect civilians in Gaza?
It's a really interesting question. It's a really important question because what we see is we have experts worldwide. We have organizations like mine, the International Center of Justice for Palestinians. We have commentators. We have countries even that can see very clearly what's happening in Israel and Gaza, and including October the 7th, but also Israel's attack on Gaza following that. And you have this situation where over decades and decades, international institutions, commentators that protect or stand up or promote Palestinian rights have been delegitimized. And they've been delegitimized by a really powerful state, Israel, supported by its allies in the United States of America and United Kingdom to some degree, as well as actors in state actors in Europe. And together what they've done is they've created a situation of absolute impunity for Israel. And what does that mean when you say absolute impunity for Israel? It means that Israel can do anything it likes. And no, I say anything it likes, not almost anything it likes, literally anything it likes. And the international community, mainly Western countries, will stand back or allow Israel to do that or even cover up some of the crimes. And so a simple example of that, where this happened recently, is, for example, the shooting of Palestinian-American journalist Shireen Abu Akleh, where Israel initially announced that it was actually a Palestinian gunman that shot her. And then America supported that position until very soon afterwards it became very clear that it was an Israeli gunman, an Israeli soldier that shot her. But in terms of accountability for that shooting, nothing. Absolutely nothing. And so when you create a system or when you create a position for a state where it can act with impunity and it can do what it likes, and people that should be restraining it are actually encouraging it, supporting it, even to some degree complicit in it, you end up with a situation where the answer to your question is almost unknown. What will it take for Israel to stop its bombardment and killing of civilians in Gaza? What will it take? And the answer is, to be honest with you, I don't know. I don't know.
Wow, I didn't actually expect that answer from you. I thought you might have had it all worked out by now. That's
Well, I can. When I look at the situation in Gaza, so when I saw what was happening on October 7th unfold, interestingly, I had to do a speech at the Labour Party conference on the Monday, and this was planned months in advance. And the speech then had to come in the context of October the 7th. And it became really important for us to decide, first of all, whether we even did it or not. And I made the decision that we would continue with the speech. And we had a room of about 200-300 people. And I had to present an argument to them about Palestinians, what next for Palestinians. And of course, in light of what happened on October the 7th, that became a bit of a ridiculous speech to make. But what I thought was really important was to talk about October the 7th in context of what that meant for Israelis and what that meant for Palestinians and how we got there. So we can talk about, for example, what's happening in Gaza now, okay? And you can ask the question, why is Israel attacking thousands of people, thousands of Hamas operatives, whatever you want to call them, thousands of civilians are dying, thousands of children have died. And why is Israel doing that? And you can point back, as Israel and its allies do, to October the 7th and say, well, actually, the reason they did this is because Hamas broke out of the border, they crossed the fence, they came into Israel, and they killed what was originally 1,400 people, then 1,200, and now there's a question mark about the number, but it doesn't really matter what that number is because we know that lots of people died on October the 7th, lots of Israelis died. And we know that some of the action or all of the action that Hamas took on that day was in violation of international law. We also know that, particularly where the people that they were attacking were civilians. So we know that. So we can say, okay, we saw what's happening now, today, and over the last few weeks, and we know that was because of October the 7th. And that's where a lot of commentators stop, don't they? And they're like, okay, well, that's day one. Well, it's not day one. So I've decided that on October the 9th, my speech should be about 75 years and what's happened and what's led to that position. And I think that's really important, and it's a really it's a huge part of the conversation that's missing in many commentators, and also, unfortunately, in the analysis by people like Biden and his advisors and people like Sunak and his advisors, and even to some degree by the Board of Deputies in the UK and the Community Security Trust. You can't start analysing a situation unless you look at the facts, you look at all of them, and you look at them without a biased mind. And we know what's happened. What then led to, why did Hamas and why did some Palestinians break out of Gaza? I'm just using that word, break out of Gaza,
right,
because they were stuck into Gaza. I'm not going to comment in this. I'm not making a comment about whether that was right or wrong, in the same way as I haven't made a comment yet about what Israel is doing being right or wrong. I'm just talking about an event and a cause, an event and a cause. And so we have 75 years of subjugation of Palestinians. We have over a decade of blockade of people in Gaza. We have a system of apartheid, state-level apartheid between Palestinians and Israelis, or Palestinians and Jews, in that region. And you have this situation, and you have decades and decades of gifted impunity to one actor, a completely asymmetrical situation between Israelis and Palestinians. And that led to October the 7th. And so if you want to analyse that situation, and you're an honest broker in this, and I consider myself to be an honest broker in this, you have to look at what's happening now in Israel. You have to look at what was happening now, in Gaza, what happened on October the 7th in Israel, but then what happened before that? What led a group of people to get into a position where they charge behind, let's put it in these terms, a proscribed terrorist organisation, because that's what Hamas is according to many parts of the world. Some people consider them to be a resistance organisation. Some people consider them to be a proscribed organisation. Here in the UK, our government has prescribed them. So here in the UK, we refer to them as a proscribed terrorist organisation. That's what they are. So what causes that? And I think this aspect of this discussion is really important.
It's interesting you raise this, because obviously you're a lawyer. The ICJP is focused on taking legal action, doing something, practical. But those 75 years, a lot of that's historical, it's political. How do you interweave that kind of narrative, those facts, that many years into legal work?
Well, it's really important because ICJP is all about the rule of law. It's all about the principles of justice, applied, by the way, equally to Jewish Israelis as well as Palestinians, whether they be Christian or Muslim or of no religion or something else, right? And this is what we identified when we created ICJP, or when ICJP was founded, was that we looked at the situation in Palestine, Israel, and the single thing that I, as a lawyer, as I'd say an activist, but a rule of law democratic activist, because that's what I'm advocating, rule of law. What we recognised was that there was a system of justice which was weighted in one way and not in the other way. So you have a situation where the tiniest infraction of an Israeli person's rights, including whether they're illegally there as a settler, is dealt with a harsh response by Israel. People are arrested, people are detained unlawfully, people are imprisoned without judicial process, people are shot dead, right? If a settler on occasion is carrying out an act of violence towards a Palestinian, you often have IDF soldiers supporting that action. There's no way for that Palestinian to defend themselves. There's no recourse in an Israeli court for that Palestinian to say, my rights have been violated. So that you have this asymmetrical system of justice. And what we tried to do at ICJP is to just balance that. Right? And so we wanted to, because actually, by the way, it's not my job to do that. It's not ICJP's job to do that. It's not a small little NGO based in London's job to do this. It's the job of Western states. It's the job of the Global South. It's the job of the United Nations. It's the job of states across the globe to do this. It's not my job to do this, but they're failing to do this. And so where they decided that they were, for whatever political reason, for whatever financial reason, for whatever geopolitical reason, for whatever self-interest reason, and often that might be the self-interest of politicians' personal pockets, sometimes I would imagine, right? Wherever their reason for not doing something, we decided that we'd step in there. And so what we tried to do, and it's difficult, but what we tried to do is to utilise the law to create a system of accountability for Palestinians where their rights have been violated. And my view is that the only time you're going to get two groups together at a table to discuss a settlement is when they are seen as equals and when the international community applies the rule of law to them equally. So if you have this asymmetrical system where if me and you are having an argument and you are the weaker in the, well, probably you'll be the stronger one, but if you're the stronger one in the argument, right, and I'm the weaker one, and I say to you, well, look, you know, can you give me something in this discussion? Well, you'll sit there and you'll think, well, what happens if I don't?
Yeah.
And if the answer to what happens if I don't is absolutely nothing, then why would you ever make a deal with me?